Think about the map of your own country you have in your head. Its shape, its size, the big cities. You learned it in school, you see it on the news. It feels solid, real, like a simple fact. But what if that mental map is dead wrong? What if the true scale of your nation is a secret, hidden by the very maps you trust? What if your country doesn't have one capital, but three? And what if the landscapes you think define your homeland are just a tiny piece of a much bigger, more shocking reality? These aren't just fun facts. We're looking at 5 cultures with huge, fundamental misunderstandings about their own geography. These are surprising truths that don't just change the map, but challenge national identity itself. Let's kick things off with a country that prides itself on being big, the United States. Ask any American and they'll probably tell you Texas is the king of big states, the ultimate symbol of everything grand and sprawling. It's part of the national identity, but this piece of common knowledge is completely wrong, and the proof is hiding in plain sight on their own maps. On almost every standard map of the USA, you'll see Alaska, the 49th state, stuck in a little box somewhere off the coast of California. It looks like a tidy, medium-sized add-on. This is a massive distortion. In reality, Alaska is unimaginably vast. It's more than twice the size of Texas. In fact, you could fit Texas, California, and Montana inside of it, and still have room to spare. Let that sink in. The next 3 largest states all fit inside it. So why the huge misconception? There are a couple of reasons. First, the common Mercator map projection bloats the size of land masses the closer they get to the poles. Many Alaskans will tell you the biggest thing outsiders don't get is the sheer scale, and that traveling between towns often means getting on a plane, not in a car. For a culture that so often links size with identity, Alaska's true geography is a genuine shock, revealing that their mental map drastically undersells the colossal reality of their own nation. Next, we're heading to a nation whose government is a geographical puzzle that baffles even its own citizens: South Africa. Ask someone to name the capital of South Africa, and most people, including plenty of South Africans, will likely say Pretoria. Some might guess Cape Town, but very few will give you the correct answer. There are 3. South Africa is one of the only countries that intentionally spreads its government across 3 different cities. Pretoria is the administrative capital, where the president and cabinet work. Cape Town is the legislative capital, home to the parliament. And Bloemfontein is the judicial capital, where the Supreme Court of Appeal sits. This baffling setup is a direct consequence of the country's turbulent past. When the Union of South Africa was formed in 1910, it merged former British colonies and Boer republics that had just been at war. They couldn't agree on a single capital because each region was terrified the others would get too much power. The solution was a compromise: spread the power out. For many South Africans, it's just a complicated fact of life, but the historical drama behind it, and the sheer geographical spread of their government, is a surprisingly misunderstood part of their national identity. When you picture Australia, what do you see? For most of the world, and honestly, for many Australians hugging the coastlines, it's a vast, empty, red desert. The outback. The idea of a monolithic, lifeless wasteland is baked into the Australian psyche. But this image is a huge geographical misconception. The Australian outback, which covers about 70% of the continent, is not one uniform desert. It's one of the most ecologically vital and diverse regions on the planet. It has massive tropical grasslands, savannas, rugged mountain ranges, and sprawling wetland systems with biodiversity that could rival a rainforest. And for a place everyone thinks of as bone dry, the outback sits on top of huge underground water sources, like the Great Artesian Basin, which feeds ancient springs that have supported unique life for millions of years. It might look harsh, but over 80% of Australia's mammal, reptile, and plant species are found nowhere else on Earth, and much of that unique life is found in the outback. This isn't a dead center, it's the continent's living, breathing heart. The reason for this cultural blind spot is pretty simple. Almost everyone lives somewhere else. Over 95% of Australians are clustered in cities along the temperate coasts. Japan usually brings a very specific image to mind: a small, tightly packed island nation. For the Japanese themselves, their country is a world of 4 distinct seasons, a place of cultural unity forged in a relatively small space. While the density is certainly real, the idea that Japan is geographically small is a shocking illusion. The truth is, Japan is incredibly long. It stretches over 3,000 kilometers from its northeast corner to its southwest tip. If you were to pivot the Japanese archipelago and lay it over the east coast of the United States, it would run all the way from Maine down to northern Florida. Someone living in Sapporo, on the northern island of Hokkaido, is digging out from long, heavy winters in a climate similar to New York. At that exact same moment, a person in Okinawa, in the southern islands, could be enjoying a warm, subtropical beach day. This is a country that spans everything from subarctic taiga to near-tropical rainforests. Yet the national image is dominated by the 4 temperate seasons of the main island. The huge majority of Japan's population is on the main island of Honshu, creating a powerful center of gravity that shapes the national identity. Finally, we arrive in Great Britain, an island nation whose entire identity is tied to its coastline. For centuries, the British have been defined by their relationship with the sea, so you'd think they would know how long their own coast is. But this is where we find a truly stunning geographical twist. The coastline of Great Britain doesn't have a single measurable length. In a way, it's infinitely long. This is called the coastline paradox, and as absurd as it sounds, it's a real mathematical and geographical phenomenon. If you try to measure the coastline with a huge ruler, say 100 kilometers long, you connect the major points and get one answer. The official figure from Britain's mapping agency is around 11,072 miles for the mainland. But what if you use a smaller ruler, say one that's just a kilometer long? Now you can poke into all the smaller bays and trace around the little headlands the big ruler skipped over. The total length will get longer. If you use a 1-meter ruler, it gets longer again as you meticulously trace every single rock. If you could measure down to each grain of sand, the number would become astronomically large. This paradox was famously explored when mapmakers realized Spain and Portugal reported different lengths for their shared border. They were using different-sized rulers to measure it. For a culture so defined by its island nature, the fact that its most fundamental boundary, the very line between land and sea, is a shifting, unmeasurable, fractal concept is a profound shock. It means the edge of their nation, the line they've defended and depended on for centuries, is a geographical riddle that has no simple answer. It's incredible how the maps in our heads can be so different from the reality on the ground. If you know any other wild geographical misconceptions from your own culture, I'd love to read about them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed having your mental map completely redrawn, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more journeys into our amazing world. From the true scale of Alaska to the impossible coastline of Britain, it's clear that even the places we think we know best are full of surprises. These aren't just mistakes on a map. They're reflections of our history, our culture, and how we see our place in the world. They remind us that there's always something new to discover, even about the place we call home. The world is never as simple as it looks on a map, and maybe that's what makes it so endlessly fascinating. Thanks for watching.